Hello and welcome to School Gardens with Ease podcast. I am Leila Mireskandari and this is episode number 9. In this episode, I will talk about what to do if you are a teacher and you saw an abandoned school garden and decided to revive and use it, or someone else decided to order a school garden, they got it installed and now you're called to use it, or you were given an abandoned garden and told to run with it. Essentially, you were given a garden that you didn't get to design or decide on any of the physical aspects of it. Because for those of you who are starting to think about growing a school garden and you don't have one yet, get to design following my advice, well, that's the ideal situation because there's a lot that goes into designing and building a regenerative school garden that conventional garden builders don't know about. So preferably, you want to have a say in the way the garden is designed and even built. But it happens more often than we want than a school garden was built years ago. It was or wasn't used. It was or wasn't successful at some point. But then no one continued, or the main gardener teacher moved away, or retired or got promoted or something. And now you are tasked to take over. Happens a lot. So let's talk about it. If that's not your situation, still listen in because I bet you'll learn a thing or two that helps you with your current or future garden. Okay, so let's see how to approach this existing garden that you had no say in. First of all, I'm assuming you're a teacher here. If you're a parent, I strongly encourage you to find a teacher at your child's school and encourage them to do it. If they're willing but don't know how, send them my way. As I always say, a school garden should be grown by the students under the care and leadership of their teachers during class time. I know you want a school garden for your child, and I love you for it, but no offense, it's not your place. Please support a willing teacher to do it. Now, teachers, if I was in your shoes and was given a garden just like that, I would ask the following questions. Number 1, what vegetations are already in the garden? Go take a look. Are they perennials or annuals? Meaning, are they done at the end of the season and need to be cleared out? Or will they live for years and need to be kept in place? Maybe there are perennials that you don't want to keep, you want to get rid of. Map it out so that you know what type of space you've got to work with. Question number 2, what is your growing zone? Can you grow in fall as well as spring? For colder climates where I teach, for example, fall growing window is very short. By the time that your students are settled into the new classroom, new teachers, new friends, and new routines, it's mid-October and freeze will start very soon and there's just no point. But if you are in a warmer climate, you can totally grow 2 seasons in one school year, one in fall and one in spring. Especially if your school year starts in August, then you have plenty of time to grow in fall. The answer to this question helps you plan better. Question number 3, what's the watering situation for this garden? Is there a working outdoor tap close to the garden and a lightweight hose with a proper multi-setting nozzle at the tip that reaches all ends of the garden? If the hose is heavy or doesn't reach or both, you've got to fix that. Test the tap, make sure it works, because just because there is a tap, it doesn't mean it works. In most cases, it doesn't. Even when the custodian says that it does, it still doesn't mean it does. Take your students to the setup and watch them work with the hose. You don't want to have to do it yourself for them. You want to empower them to do the work. If the hose is too heavy or hard to work with, or it's too short, change it. You'll thank me later. Do not use sprinklers or watering cans, please. I'm going to explain why in future episodes, but just for now, don't. If you have a soaker hose or a drip irrigation installed, good for you. Test it. Make sure it works. And if not, get it fixed right away. Question number 4, does the garden get full sun? This is one of the most important aspects. You all know that vegetable gardens need lots of sunlight, but when it comes to it, some of us settle for less and our gardens fail. Don't do that. No matter how pretty and well laid your garden is designed, no matter how well the watering system works, no matter how rich the soil is, if you don't have enough sunlight, just don't bother. And I'm not even joking. That could be the reason that garden was abandoned. Honestly, not worth any efforts. How do you know if a garden gets enough sunlight? Go to it and look around. Is it all open? Are there any tall trees or with wide canopies or tall buildings that shade the garden? For how long in a day do they shade the garden? Let me give you a worst case scenario. If in Northern Hemisphere, where most of you probably are, unless we have a lot of listeners from down under, if there is a wall attached to the south side of the garden, this garden gets no sunlight whatsoever. Maybe a little bit during, very sunny summer times because, the shadows are very short, but none in the springtime, which is when you need it for your plants to get strong. That's because the sun is always on the south here. If you're listening from Australia, reverse that. For us, the sun rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest, and that wall will shade the garden all day long. One more thing you have to remember is the sun is lower in the sky during the spring and higher during summer. So if, for example, you place a garden under a canopy of a tree and you see that garden gets sunlight and lots of it during the day in the spring because of the angle of the sunlight, that tree could completely shade your garden during summer. So be careful. So you have to really look around, know your sun directions, which is science, but really not rocket science, and use your imagination. Question number 5. What's the soil condition? Was it bare for a long time and therefore eroded and weakened by the elements? Or is it covered with weed, which is, believe it or not, better than it being bare, but then that means that you have a weed issue? Is it rich soil? Is it poor soil? Rich soil is dark and moist, and you can see signs of life like worms in it. That's also science and not rocket science, but if you can't tell, ask a local expert to help you with that. If your soil needs life, then top it up with organic compost. There are 5 types of soil testing people can do: pH, nutrients, texture, structure, and toxins. In my opinion, don't bother with any of those tests unless you do it as part of a lesson to teach your students. But if you're just doing it for preparations, don't worry about it. Any deficiency is solved with good quality organic compost. There is no need to complicate things. The only thing that matters is toxins, and even for that, I wouldn't test. I would just not dig into that soil. If the history of your land of your school is questionable, do not even think about digging into that soil. Honestly, even if the history is not questionable, why risk it? That is not something you want to risk. Import good quality organic soil and start with that. If your soil is very weedy, then you want to prevent the seed weeds that are already in the soil to germinate and grow on you. And the best technique for that is sheet mulching. It's a fantastic permaculture technique for getting rid of existing vegetations and preventing new weed seeds to grow. I'll dedicate an entire episode to permaculture techniques, especially in relation to building brand new gardens. But for now, just Google sheet mulching, and I promise you that you'll find plenty of information about it. Science, but not rocket science. And children love sheet mulching. It's lots of fun and also easy. Question number 6. I've saved the best for the last. This one is the most important question you should answer, which has nothing to do with the physical aspects of the garden and everything to do with how you want to use it. The question is, how do I incorporate the tasks of growing an annual vegetable garden with what I am teaching my students during class time? Maybe you're a teacher that, you're the main teacher, what we call a homeroom teacher here. So you spend a lot of time with your students and you teach them the majority of the subjects. Or maybe you're, for example, a science teacher who rotates between different classes. No matter your situation, you spend a certain amount of time with your students teaching them certain subjects. You want to grow the garden when you are teaching those subjects. So you need to connect the garden to your curriculum. I cannot emphasize this enough, because the last thing you want is to grow the garden by yourself and do all the labor, or to beg other teachers and parents and admin staff to come help you and organize and manage garden committees, or have to arrange, run, manage extracurricular garden club during lunch, after hours, or worse, weekends. You will hear me say this again and again, and this does go against the grain. I am not surprised that you're surprised, because you've been hearing the opposite. The school garden is a hands-on learning tool. You want it done by your students, and you want the work to be connected to your curriculum so that you can grow it during class time, and it connects to everything. Any other way, and you'll end up exhausted, which is what happens to everyone else. Your students won't learn much, and your garden won't grow as well. So what's the point? After you answer and address these 6 questions, you want to go grab my recommended list of seeds for schools in the show notes. Then the guide to seed starting in schools, which the link to is also in the show notes, and follow future episodes as I will walk you through the rest of it. Let me know your questions in the comments below. See you next week in a new episode.